Welcome to the Gifts from the Edge podcast, where you are about to meet parents and professionals, educators and entrepreneurs who have taken the path less traveled, and by doing that, have made all the difference. Now it's time to step out of the ordinary. Here's your host, Andrew Lord.
Hey there, and welcome to the Gifts from the Edge podcast. This is episode number 1, and I'm really excited to be here. If you've been following me for a while, you would have known that the blueprint ended up at the end of 2022, and I have been rebranding andrewlord.com.au, where I'm taking my education programs, Blueprint Education Solutions, and also my coaching programs for adults, Blueprint Life Coaching, all the MX programs, bundling them all together under one banner called Blueprint Life Academy, but it's also a personal brand called Andrew Lord. So that's where we're at, beginning of 2023, a very exciting time. The book came out late last year. I've got this new brand launch, and as a part of this new brand launch, I am releasing this new podcast concept, which I'm really excited about. It's called Gifts from the Edge, and it is a reference to the hero's journey. Again, if you've been following me for a little while, you would know that the hero's journey is a part of lots of the different programs that I have on offer. So for the youth, I've got Adventure Quest, Mini Heroes, Project Space, Youth Mentoring, Dangerous Minds. These are all programs for young people, and they are all, to some degree, or modeled on or give reference to the stages of the hero's journey, particularly the call to adventure, particularly the crisis moment, trials and crisis moment, and particularly the treasure that emerges from that. So I'm going to unpack some of those different stages in just a minute. I think it's really important in this first episode that you have a deeper understanding of the hero's journey, so that, in future episodes, you understand what it's all about. And if you're listening to this episode deciding on whether to subscribe or not, this can help you to make that decision to subscribe. I hope that you do subscribe. There'll be a button just above or below or near to make sure that you don't miss any of the future episodes, which are going to be awesome. We've got some amazing people in the pipeline already. So make sure you just click that subscribe button. Don't miss an update moving forward. All right. And of course, the hero's journey is also an undergirding principle in a lot of the life coaching work, the adult programs, either for leaders or for parents and professionals that I run as well. It's not as directly taught, like we don't directly talk about the hero's journey as such, but it's definitely there. There is definitely moments that we go through, different moments, the identity phase, the mindset phase, the strategy phase, the habits and accountability phase, the flying solo phase. These are all phases that indirectly reference the hero's journey as well. So like I said, we've got lots of exciting new things happening, this podcast being one of them. The lifestyle design quiz is being completely redone. I've been working with Vijoy, the developer, on that over the last 2-3 months. And so we have a brand new lifestyle design quiz. If you're listening to this, there'll be a link. If you're listening to this on the website, there will be a link to click on to go and take that quiz. But if you're listening somewhere else and you just need to remember the URL, it's lifestyledesignquiz.com. Pretty easy to remember. Go and take that. You will get a 7-page personalized report based on your responses to the questions. It'll outline your strength profile, your focus for growth, which is, what matters most to you right now and how you want to grow. It'll also give you some personalized coaching questions, some clarity questions to help you get really clear on what are your next steps moving forward. And it'll also put you in an email sequence that I've been spending a lot of time working on to give you lots of value, lots of resources going forward into the future. So that's lifestyledesignquiz.com. It's brand new, like everything else at the moment. Make sure you go and check that out. All right, let's get into the hero's journey. I want to unpack the hero's journey so you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll be able to understand how this podcast fits in to that model, the role that it's meant to play. Now, I'm actually recording this podcast at home. There is a chook making a lot of noise outside right now. So if you can hear that in the background, I apologize, but there's nothing really I could do about that. Sorry about the chook. All right, let's go. Status quo. Status quo is where we start. Oh, by the way, you should have a graphic. I'm hoping that you're listening to this on the website, and there'll be a graphic just below so that you can actually look at that graphic, or you can have it printed out if you're on the move, where you can see the stages that I'm talking about. It's got the 12 different stages. Joseph Campbell discovered the hero's journey by unpacking all sorts of different cultures from around the world. He's looked at Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. He's looked at Aboriginal culture, North American Indian culture, all sorts of different cultures from around the world. And he has distilled what he calls the monomyth, or that's what we call the hero's journey. It's like the essence of all of these different, cultural stories from around the world. And so we as humans define our existence, really, our world, through stories. And so what Joseph Campbell has done is he's analyzed these stories, and he's kind of taken out the key principles and distilled them into a theory, I guess. And you screenwriters, authors, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, all of these different, major epic narratives that we have as part of our culture, a lot of them have been based on and give reference to the hero's journey. And so this podcast is also going to give reference to the hero's journey. So it starts with status quo. I've got it like the hands of a clock, 12 points. And that's where we start. Everything is ordinary. Everything is normal. It's almost like Groundhog Day. You're just going through the routine. But there's like this little seed, this nagging sense of, I don't know if this is all I'm called to. It can kind of happen in one of two ways, actually. You can be completely oblivious to it. You can just be skipping along, happy in this ordinary world. Or then often what happens is that a mentor shows up, and then there's a call to adventure. And that call to adventure is kind of like the seed in the oyster that starts, beginning to aggravate the status quo. It's like things can't be the same anymore. For me, my call to adventure happened, in a very sort of abrupt, rude way, being called into the principal's office at the school that I was working at. And I was doing some fantastic work in this school. I was winning awards for it the year before, but then the year after, I kept sort of pushing the boundaries. And what I've learned about schools is that they like the idea of change just so long as it doesn't affect the teachers. It doesn't affect the teachers. So long as the teachers don't have to change what they're doing, then, they're happy to hear about new programs and that. Most of the idea of change is focused around students, but teachers don't like to change. Anyway, get off my soapbox for a second. I'm just talking about my call to adventure. My call to adventure happened at that moment, and I was sort of given the option either to stop doing whole school programs, holistic whole school programs, the way I was doing them, or and focus on just the thing I had to do with my faculty, or leave the school. That was kind of the option that I was given. And so I felt called in my heart to be doing this stuff, this work that I was doing with, the Aboriginal community, and also trying to create personalized learning experiences for every student at the school. And so to stop doing it is kind of like asking me to, give up a child or to cut off my arm. And so I made that decision just to move on. I didn't know what I was going to go to next. But that was kind of like my call to adventure. But that's what I'm hoping that this podcast can be for you. I'm hoping that it can be a mentor, that you will be able to meet a mentor in this podcast where they can give you a positive call to adventure. It'll still be challenging for sure. Every call to adventure is, but yeah, I'm hoping that you're going to get a lot of value and wisdom and excitement out of the stories that you hear on this podcast. So in a lot of the models that you look at, there's a refusal of the call, but then stage 2 is assistance. And for me, that form of assistance, it came in the form of a book. I decided once made the decision I was going to leave that safe position there in the school and go out on my own. I had no idea what was going to happen next, but I read this amazing book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. It was on the bookshelf at the holiday house that I was staying at just because we wanted to get away for the weekend. You can read about all of this in my book, by the way. I'm going to put a link to Thrive by Design. I tell my full story if you want to hear that. So make sure you go and check that out. But yeah, so that was my assistant. Some call it supernatural aid, and I did meet the mentor. I guess my mentor at that point was David Schwartz, and then stage 3 is the departure. So call to adventure. Number 2 is assistance, which is also meeting the mentor. And number 3 is departure. And departure is where you leave your safe, ordinary world. You leave that place where the status quo has just been ticking over, and you dive into this special world. Step 4 is trials. That's where you're going to start to face trials. You're going to, some people call it belly of the whale. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to go back? Because you've only just kind of stepped into this special world, and you're at a stage where you could go back. You could get out of this, and you have to make a decision. Am I going to go move forward, or am I going to continue? And I guess that's why it's called belly of the whale. It's a reference to, the story of Jonah, where he flees. He decides to refuse the call, and he ends up in the belly of a whale because he refused the call. So it's a point where you have to access your courage to be able to go and do the thing that you're called to do. Step number 5 is approach. And there's a lot of different models. I've sort of bundled a few of the models that have got more than 12 steps. I've bundled some of their steps into this one step called approach. There's the Meet the Goddess stage, which is a phase of relief, and where someone who can give you advice and encouragement. In Lord of the Rings, Frodo meets Galadriel in the forest, and it's like, just a little bit of reprieve before you continue on your journey. And there's also within that, there's also the temptation to stop. There's the temptation to go back when you're facing the trials, but there's also the temptation to stop when you're in approach. You hit this little oasis, this little comfortable space, pardon me, and you're thinking, maybe I could just stop here. I could just settle here for a while. But it's kind of like a mini hero's journey again, where you know that you're called and it begins to nag at you again, and you know that you've got to keep going. And another little element of the hero's journey is atonement with the Father. I've sort of bundled these all together under approach. But, for some stories, it really is a significant part of the story. If you think about the Star Wars trilogy, think of that moment where Luke Skywalker, he faces Darth Vader, and Darth Vader makes the choice to step in and save his son, and in the process loses his life. And so Luke is losing his father. And so there's that atonement, there's that reconciliation with the Father. And it often is an emotional climax in the story because the father is now gone. He's just out of the picture. And because of that, the hero has to step up. The hero has to become a new person again. And he's not defined anymore as the son of Darth Vader. He is now defined as the Jedi. He's now stepped into his new character. So, like I said, doesn't always happen in every story, but I think it's an important one to bundle in there so you know about it. And then you have step 6, stage 6, which is halfway through. It's at the depths of the special world, and it is the crisis moment. This is where the hero faces his biggest challenge, dies possibly. You see this in the gospel story of Jesus. You know, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's having that atonement moment with his Father. He has a struggle, a wrestle in prayer with God and says, do I have to do this? If there is some other way that I can do this, please let there be another way. And then the prayer just continues over and over again. Please, if there's another way, can I just take another path? But, you know, God obviously stays fixed, and Jesus says, not my will, but yours be done. And then Jesus has to face his crisis moment, his darkest hour, and that is where he faces death. And within the death, there is also an aha moment. It's a revelatory moment where the call to adventure, the very thing that person has been called to do, now takes center stage. In the crisis phase, it looks like all hope is lost. It looks like this is it. We're done. Show's over. That's the end of the story. It's not a happy ending. It's a crap ending. Done. That's what the crisis moment is like. But from the crisis is birthed the treasure. And that's step number 7. Sometimes called the ultimate boon. From the crisis moment, there is an amazing, precious thing that is discovered. In the gospel story, it is, you know, Jesus being resurrected back to life. In the Star Wars trilogy, it is Luke becoming a Jedi and taking his place, fulfilling his call, doing that thing that he had always wanted to be. In Lord of the Rings, the crisis moment is that moment where he's right on the edge, and I'm talking about the movie now, not the book, but, you know, he says, throw it in, you know, and he turns around and he says, it's mine. And so that's the death of Frodo, the good Frodo. The last shred of the good Frodo dies in that moment. And, you know, it looks like all hope is lost. And yet somehow there's a treasure that comes out of it. And no, I'm not going to spoil the story for you if you haven't heard it or watched it, but there's a treasure there where they do achieve success and they complete the mission. And at that moment, they're if you watch the movie, they're lying on the edge of the mountain and they're reminiscing about the Shire. It's as though they've died. You know, they've given up all hope of return. There's lava flowing down the mountain all around them. They have given up all hope of return. And then there is step number 8, which I've got marked here as the result, but in other models it's called the magic flight, which is, you know, the eagles show up and they take them back to the ordinary world. In some stories, there is also a refusal of the return, similar to a refusal of the call where they don't want to go back. But in this model, it is just called result. And then there's return. And in the return, we come back to our ordinary world. We've achieved something. We come back to our ordinary world and we look around and we have mastered that thing that was a challenge, that thing that was a demon to us before, that dragon has been slain. We have overcome, and now we have a new life. We are master of the two worlds, and all our past challenges pale into insignificance when we come back, when we have our return. And so this podcast, it's kind of doing two things. It's gifts from the edge. So step number 3, which is departure, which is where you would meet the mentor and just make the decision to go into the special world. I hope that this podcast is that for you. But I also hope that this podcast represents the return, the other side of the coin, where people who have taken the path less traveled, they have ventured into the wilderness, they've been brave, they've done something unusual. They've stepped off that beaten path, gone into their own special world, also known as the wilderness. They've faced trials, they've faced crisis moments, and they've come back with a treasure, a gift to share with the people, some special piece of wisdom, a practical resource. Inspiration, I think, is the big one that a lot of these people are going to come back with, and they're going to share that with us. And so that is the gift from the Edge. That's what this podcast is all about. And for that person, we're going to hear about their new life. We're going to hear about the resolution, all the way things have worked out for them. And then we're going to hear about what their new life looks like as well, back to the status quo. So that's the hero's journey in a nutshell. And I hope that you can see how this Gifts from the Edge podcast is an extension of that. You are going to hear a call to adventure. You're going to meet mentors on this podcast. You're also going to hear about their trials, their crisis. You're also going to hear about their new life, their resolution, and what status quo looks like for them now. And I hope that it's going to inspire you to step out of your ordinary world and go on your own exciting adventure. All right, that is all I have for this first episode. Thank you so much for being part of this new launch of the new brand, andrewlord.com.au. If you haven't already, make sure you go and check out the website. Click on new here. It'll give you a whole bunch of different things that you can do to start your journey, including subscribing for the podcast. If you're listening to this on YouTube or Spotify, make sure you click the link to follow and subscribe as well. Hope you're having a fantastic week wherever you are. That's all from me today. Bye for now.